All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to the U Street Bus Priority Project. This is meeting number 2. Good evening. It's just after 6 o'clock. We're going to get started here in just a moment as people roll in. I see a couple more folks coming in, and then we can kind of get started. So let's give it one more minute, and then we'll start rolling. And then Danica, will you be recording this? How do we need to make a? Is that starting already? Yep, I see the recording is in progress. Excellent. Okay.
Yes, this webinar is being recorded live as well as being streamed to Facebook.
Okay, great. All right, well, let's get into the welcome. Doesn't want to change it from there, so let's go this time. Let's try that instead. All right, welcome everybody. We are using WebEx. Obviously, it's a platform I'm very familiar with. We hardly use it here at DDOT, but for all of our public meetings, we do. And so this is a public meeting. It is open to the city, but we have specifically reached out to all of the different ANCs that are within the project area. So welcome and good evening. Thank you for getting this out to your communities. We're going to be going over the U Street Bus Priority Project, which will include kind of what you've heard already when we started to kick this off at the start of the year, give you some background on our bus priority program and what we're hoping to accomplish with the city, and then get into specifically what we're looking at within this corridor on U Street. We've done a lot of data analysis, and we've done a lot of community engagement. And so we've learned a lot about the corridor. We've heard from you who are the experts who live and work and play along U Street. And we've incorporated that into our design, where we're going to be displaying some preferred concepts to you for the first time. After we display those concepts, we'll get into a Q&A. But just to note, these are kind of the first draft of these concepts. There's still a lot of design and engineering to come through this process. So we're just kind of we're still at the beginning of this, but we think we have some really good ideas, especially hearing back from you guys. And so we'll present that to you, and you can kind of get your first look and taste of the future of U Street. So look forward to that discussion. At the very end, we will ask you to take a survey so that we know who all was here and who we're serving, so that we can get better. And so I'll move on. And just note that, again, we're using WebEx. Right now, I am the only one on video, and I am the only one unmuted. You can add at any time into the chat for any questions. I'm going to ask Melanie and Jamie, who are my partners within this, and I'll get to the team in just a second. I should have introduced myself before, but we'll get you when we get into the Q&A session. So if you have some other issues, you can call here. We do have Danica on here offering support. So thank you to the whole team. And then Mignon is here from Mignon Bowie is here from our community engagement division as well. But I am Matthew Hendrickson. I'm a transportation planner here at DDOT within the bus priority program and transit delivery division. I just alluded to our team, Melanie Marino, who is the deputy project manager, and Jamie Carrington, who is making sure we do everything right and supporting us along the way. So thank you to you both. And again, just a shout out to the entire DDOT team who is joining us here as we discuss these concepts. Okay, that's a proper introduction. Okay, so what do we do here at the Bus Priority Program? One, we've kind of highlighted U Street here, but this is one of 51 projects within the Move DC plan that is trying to get people around the city by bus, and especially working to improve bus speed and reliability for people across the city. We know that this is important But if we can do that, we can provide a better quality of life for people by providing better access to all the things you need, especially to jobs and opportunity. But it's not just about access. Um, Again, it's about quality of life. So making sure that people are safe, making sure that buses are moving effectively, and using a lot of different types of tools to make sure that we can keep people moving to get to where they want to go. And then one last little piece as far as this particular corridor. The corridor itself is 0.7 miles in length, but we have some exciting news here. How it's scoped out originally, the project limits were from 16th to 9th, and we're hoping to grow that a little bit more. Uh, One, why is it important? Again, that save time just means you can use it however you like. So one time, the ultimate, most valuable commodity that we have. How you spend that time is up to you. But I think a pretty good number one is, it gives you the time to be with ones that you love. It means you're spending less time at the bus. If that bus is moving, unless you just enjoy reading a newspaper at night, like this graphic suggests. And then, of course, you can go further. You can reach more destinations, as well as, the value of bus priority, especially for our emergency vehicle response. Bus lanes really do allow them to get to where they need to go without delay. And again, just reiterating why bus priority is important, increasing that speed and reliability for our buses, making it safe for everyone on the roadway, not just people who ride the bus, whether you're walking, biking, you're a person driving. There's a lot of benefits for everyone on the roadway. U Street has some really important needs for pickup and drop off. We know it's a busy nightlife corridor, a lot of restaurants, a lot of bars, a lot of freight pickups, deliveries, a lot of people trying to get out of there late at night, which means some unique challenges. And then obviously a commercial corridor. And then I was just alluding to our original limits were to 16th. And tonight we're announcing that we're going to extend those project limits to 18th Street. DDOT is also working on a streetscape project that is on a slightly different timeline than ours, but it will be going from 18th to 14th. We wanted to parallel that to make sure that we're going to have a seamless corridor. So the look and feel of that as that streetscape takes shape is consistent with what we're going to be working on with the bus priority project. Outside of those limits, the bus priority team is also working on the Florida Avenue bus priority project. And again, speaking of seamless corridors, we're extending that project from 9th Street Northwest here all the way to 1st Street Northeast, where we have the current reconstruction project of Dave Thomas Circle. So again, all of the 90s buses that will be traveling along this corridor will be impacted by these projects. And we're hoping to provide a lot of those benefits by reaching out and trying to attain these goals through bus priority. Again, the 90, 92, and 96 run all through this corridor. This is one of our highest ridership corridors. You can see how many people are riding the bus. That's a lot of people for the district, for WMATA, and for our bus routes in general. It also intersects with the Green Line, as well as the 70s, 70 buses, which are the highest ridership routes at 7th and Georgia. So again, kind of extending those limits from the Florida Avenue project. And about a third of those people are getting on or off within this project area. And then who's riding the bus? 83% people of color, as well as 55% self-identified as low income or making less than 30,000 per household. So it's a major equity issue to make sure we're delivering on quality bus service. And then, speaking of quality bus service, currently, the average bus speed is 6.7 miles per hour through U Street corridor. This is a speed map that we got from WMATA, and it shows that the entire, just about the entire area deals with congestion and delay. So those dark red lines on the map are averaging less than that kind of 6.7, so around 4 to 7 miles per hour. When you get that black line that you see approaching or approaching 7th on the right, bottom right, that's under 4 miles per hour. We want to highlight this because this is, one pretty bad during the weekday peak. The AM peak is not much better, but we also see even worse congestion late at night because of the unique nature of the late night industry on U Street. And so some of those black lines are more prevalent even late at night. So, we're really looking to not just make impacts on the speeds, but throughout the entirety of the day. And again, on the right, just some numbers from WMATA. Their on-time performance standard is 79%, and all of the buses within the U Street corridor just not making the grade. So we need to do better. And to do that, we needed to hear from you. And so we kicked off a public presentation in late March with ANC's 1B, 2B, and 2F. We've gone out to all the businesses and residences. We've flyered, we've hung posters at bus stops. We've talked to businesses. We've had several different safety walks and transportation walks to highlight the issues and areas of concern or where things are working well. And we've done this throughout all times of the day. So we've done this in that AM peak, that PM peak. We've gone out with a lot of you I see that are on the call for in the evening, as well as late at night. We had our first late night walk, and a big shout out to the Mayor's Office of Nightlife and Culture, as well as the Nightlife Task Force, who helped organize that, bringing the people together, going out, I guess it was 2 Fridays ago on the 8th, where we had a big lightning storm and rainstorm. And it was a memorable experience. And I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for coming out there. We've also been collecting comments through our website as well as our email. You will have our team's email at the very end, but you can always reach us there. And then I did want to just make one note. As we now have announced that we're extending those project limits, we haven't really hit the ground going past 16th all the way to 18th. So we will be doing that in the future. And we've already reached out to ANC 1C and their commissioners and their leadership. They've been invited to this meeting, and we are working with them to get something on the calendar where we can present to them as well as hear their specific concerns. All right, and so after talking to you, we got some feedback, and a lot of that feedback was, well, the buses are unreliable, and we could see that in the data that we collected in our needs assessment. We could see that they're moving too slow and that they're having to deal with congestion. There are a lot of different reasons why they're getting stuck. One was a big one, was double parking from delivery. Also just the pickup and drop off. There's just so many folks doing that, and a lot of them are not pulling all the way to the curb. Some are parked in the bus stop like this car here is on the right. And then others are just double parking constantly. So I pulled one quote and just said, the curbside use is crazy. And I think that that's a fair assessment of U Street in general. And so we're looking to ways to address that through this. So not just transportation as far as moving those buses, but also safety. Safety, we heard it in a lot of different ways. One, some cars, moving around, so speeding around some of those double park cars, running red lights, the crossings feeling very uncomfortable, the sidewalks feeling very uncomfortable. It's not comfortable to bike. People feeling like when there's a lot of people on the street, you're getting really close to traffic and kind of spilling over into the street. And so how can we address that through other amenities? And then we got a lot of feedback on kind of both positive and negative on the streeteries. Some streeteries are just kind of either too big or kind of blocking areas where buses should be passing and kind of turning 2 lanes into one. Others really love the aspect of having that as an amenity in their neighborhood. Um, but we are at DDOT looking to update our regulations on a lot of those streeteries. There are a lot of streeteries here within the corridor. We don't necessarily highlight them in our concepts because we know that the future of those particular locations may change. So we're looking to update that. We're going to continue to work with the businesses if they want to continue to have a streetery or if they want to make changes in the future. But I just wanted to note that that it may not, you may not see that reflected in tonight's drawings, but it's something that we're certainly cognizant of and working on with you and the larger community to maintain them if they want to be maintained. And of course, updating them so that they can be the best that they can be. All right, let's keep it moving. All right, so to improve our bus service through the U Street corridor, these are the tools that we have recommended for this project. Within our toolbox, we have about over 20 different types of tools, but these are the ones that you're really going to see defined in the concepts. It doesn't mean that we're limited to this, but it also, this is what really came to the top to be able to address all of these concerns. So the first is our offset bus lanes. We're going to talk more about that as far as how we evaluated how we came to the conclusion of the offset bus lanes. But one, the dedication of having a bus only lane really can help us move those buses and get them out of congestion. And so we are going to keep them moving with the offset bus lane. When we came to you at the beginning of the year, we talked about the potential of using curbside versus offset. We really kind of fleshed that out. But just with from the last slide, because the curb use is quote unquote crazy, it really was a non-starter for getting buses to the existing curb line. And it really is necessary for them to be away from the curb so that all of that pickup and drop off activity can continue to happen. Those streeteries can maintain if they need to, if they want to. And then we also have existing curb bump outs already that the buses already need to move in and out. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. But speaking of moving in and out, we have these curb extensions. That was something that we heard a lot from. We have an existing curb extension at 14th and and it allows the bus to just pull right in rather than having to pull over to the parking lane or to the curb. It makes it a way better for our operators because they don't have to compete with getting in and out of the parking lane and back into the flow of traffic. It makes it faster for them, so people can just pull straight ahead, stop, and people can get on and off. So more efficient operations, which is great. So that speed is picking up, but then also the safety piece of cars trying to get around or trying to get ahead of a bus, especially at an intersection, maybe turning right in front of a bus. And you see a lot of different crashes with that scenario. And that's why the operators love it, because it's just less stressful for them. Bus stop placement. As we mentioned earlier, this is a corridor that is less than a mile, but often we have bus stops every single block. WMATA prefers us to have about 4 or 5 stops per mile. And I think, when there's a stretch, when you have a bus stop at 18th and 17th and 16th and 15th and 14th and 13th, you've gone half a mile and you've already exceeded that threshold. So I think if you don't ride the bus and you you drive and you hit every single red light, Well, that's what bus riders are experiencing right now on U Street. Um, Not only are they having to stop, but then they could get stopped in multiple light cycles. And so we're going to balance that out so that we have those stops placed more evenly, so that we're able to provide local service that reaches all of the areas that you need to go, but not making it so cumbersome that you're really getting stuck in gridlock of our own making. Kind of already talked about the curbside management, but I did just want to say with the offset bus lanes, we're not really impacting that curb. And so that's good news. The other news is that we still have a lot more work to do to figure out the best uses for that curb. So there are very limited commercial loading areas. I think they're very useful, but I think what we're really seeing now in the emergence of the pandemic and with the new economic climate is that people are doing a lot more food delivery, and as well as, the kind of Uber and Lyft pickup and drop off, especially late at night, where people feel like they can't get consistent transit to where they need to go. So that definitely needs to continue. It's a work in process, work in project. Uh, and then last, again, other kind of safety measures where we're trying to make it easier for people to cross the street, especially at our intersections, create safer safer light sight lines, there we go, for people pulling out of different intersections or driveways, and kind of buffering that out and making sure that people can see people walking and other cars coming. So keep it moving. All right, here is a sample of what you're going to see as far as our mock-ups or our initial concepts. So this is a typical block. We're going to highlight, our bus lanes, our offset bus lanes, the different curb bump outs, and the different safety improvements that you'll see for each section. And again, we just kind of want to highlight these types of benefits as far as the offset bus lanes, avoiding delay, and avoiding kind of the different pickup drop-off needs, the different kinds of bulb outs that will make it easier for our bus drivers and for you to cross the street. And then those kind of sight lines, those buffers, making sure that we can slow people down at intersections, too fast turns, and any other people within the intersection to avoid those conflicts. So a nice little sample here. I want to thank Jamie on our team for helping me out with that. And then we had a lot of requests for different types of bus lanes, and I just really wanted to highlight the effectiveness of the offset bus lanes, especially in a busy corridor. So this obviously has a lot of curb demand, and a typical curbside bus lane that you see in other parts of the city just wasn't the right fit. And these only operate for a certain part of the day, but we know U Street really is 24/7. And we saw some of the highest congestion points late at night. And so we wanted to address that through those offset bus lanes. And then also it's just a little bit more difficult to keep clear because we have a lot of people that just pull to the curb, as they typically would be to get in and out or pick up and drop off, which means those curbside bus lanes get blocked quite a bit. Another request, so that's why we're going with offset rather than curbside. So just wanted that to be clear. Another great request was for center running bus lanes. This was a little bit outside of the scope of our bus priority program, and it would take a lot more resources that we have for what we would typically do with paint, red paint and markings, and some smaller construction. This would be, a much larger type of construction. It doesn't mean that we can't get there someday, but it would be a much longer process, and one we just want to make sure that we're able to deliver these types of benefits for our riders in a timely manner. It would require more impacts on the curb and removal of parking than kind of what we're proposing with our offset bus lanes. And then when you kind of do a cost analysis and looking at case studies throughout the country, this would be a major investment. but we're seeing similar benefits to those offset lanes without going down that road with such a large investment. So what I mean to say is with those offset bus lanes, we're getting more bang for our buck. But I do want to say, as we're looking towards the future, we're not closing the door on this, but we just want to, right now, we feel like this is the most appropriate treatment for the corridor. Okay, do we need a drum roll? Do we need a drum roll? Okay, we're gonna we're gonna start giving you guys some pictures of our initial concepts. I'm gonna make you wait. This is the sample reminder how we're going to portray this. We're going to start on our west end and work our way from 18th Street, essentially. So the 1700 block. This is the western end of U Street, where you can kind of see that top left corner where that slip lane is and a pork shop is just cut off. That's Florida Ave Northwest, okay? And that's coming down at that angle before you go through the intersection to reach 18th Street Northwest, okay? I just want that to be clear. Two, as we go through these, we're going to have the proposed concept blown up on top of what we're proposing, and then down below are what is already there as far as the existing conditions. So in our existing conditions, you can see 3 bus stops through that bus icon. That's what that is. We're going to have a couple other icons. As you can see, the one in the proposed concept, that's a new bus stop. So that's got that highlighted ring around it. So that's something new. And then you're also going to see in that section a bulb out for a new eastbound stop. And so we're trying to give you an example of one, here's highlighting that bus bulb out, as well as a picture so that you can kind of get a sense and feel for what it looks like and what it feels like at that location. We have a couple other icons where we're moving a bus stop within the corridor or we're removing it. And so that's what you see at that top right. We have 2 bus stops at 17th. And again, we kind of talked about the balancing, but I will also note where we propose to remove bus stops, we were not getting a lot of people getting on or off at those stops. And the other thing is where we saw people getting on or off, we kept those stops, and those happened to be where we had other transfer points with other buses. So if a bus stop is proposed to be removed, people were not using it very much, and the ones that we're keeping, people are able to transfer at those locations, and you're just seeing a lot more people use it. So that is our first proposal for 1700 block, 18th Street to 17th Street. I'm going to keep it moving, and I'm going to have to juggle a couple of things here on my screen. So if you can just give me 1 second. Okay. We're going to keep it moving. I am not seeing the chat, so we'll come back to it if there is anything that is popping up. We'll come back to the slide, but we're just going to take all of our questions at the end. So I'm just going to keep rolling and to deliver these concepts to you. So the next block here is from 17th to 16th / New Hampshire as it comes across at an angle. There may be some overlaps with these slides just so that you can kind of keep up and see where we're going. But one, you see a couple new icons. You saw the kind of crossed out bus stop that was removed there at 17th. And then we also are just moving some stops to the far side of the intersection from the near side. That has a lot of benefits for buses because they're not getting stuck at multiple light cycles. And then they're also, again, we talked about that jockeying and having cars trying to drive ahead or trying to cut off a bus to make a turn or get through an intersection. So we're eliminating that. And again, it just makes for a safer and just a higher quality experience for riders, for drivers, and for people on the street, as well as the other people driving on the roadway. So one big assumption is that throughout this, you're going to see these offset bus lanes. And then 2, you're going to see us consistently moving those near side stops to the far side because of those benefits. And then where we can, we're going to continue. I did see a pop-up of a comment. Thank you, David. But we're going to try to avoid that scenario as far as the car speeding as much as possible. But I'm getting a little sidetracked. The assumption is we're going to move those near side stops to far side and add a curb bus bulb out. Again, for what we discussed earlier, for ease of operations and for safety. So those are what you're going to really see through this. And then again, another example here on H Street, what it looks like from our toolbox. And then we'll just made one other proposal here in New Hampshire, and I'm going to talk about that here in just a second. All right, so we already have, I'm going to bring that intersection up next. We have one closed slip lane, and I think David just mentioned those high-speed turns. We've already made one closure there for safety concerns. We're going to propose to do that again on that angled crossing on the south side of New Hampshire. So you cannot make a left off of U Street into that angle southbound on New Hampshire on the south side of U Street. People will have to drive around the block to make a right turn to access that off of U Street. But we've just heard so many close calls and this intersection being so wide, people are getting run into or having a lot of close calls as they're literally crossing the street in a crosswalk. And so we wanted to minimize those conflicts as much as possible to add an additional safety benefit for people walking. As we go further east to 15th Street, again, removing those stops at 15th and balancing that so we're having them every other block rather than every single block. Okay, and here we are going to be, as we go east of 15th, adding a right turn pocket. And again, that will help us with having buses get through the intersection. A lot of times what we heard and what we've seen, especially when there are a lot of people on the street, cars are now queuing up to make that turn. And what we're going to do is make sure that the bus doesn't get stuck in that queue and that we're going to get them through that light cycle. We have an existing curb bump out on the south side at 14th Street. And so here we've proposed leaving that bus stop where it is. We have a lot of curb space there, much more open. We do have a bus shelter there. Again, it doesn't mean that we can't move that at some point and or move the shelter, but just with kind of the existing resources and already having that existing, we're going to take advantage of that, and have a shared right turn there so that bus lane will then be allowed to open up to cars for them to be able to make that right on 14th. However, on the other side, on that north/westbound side, we're moving that stop from the near side to the far side and adding that curb bump out to accommodate bus service. Okay, moving along. We mentioned those right turn pockets. Here's another example here in the district on I Street where you can open up, you kind of have a window. Those dashed lines mean it's a shared space for both cars and buses. And again, cars can then use that right turn pocket to make their turns and buses can move along effectively within their own lane. We have an existing curb bump out already. And so we're going to just maintain that. And again, keeping in a couple of these right turn pockets, as well as some of these shared right turns. Where and again, moving near side stops to far side. Here is a crucial connection for us on 13th Street, is at the Metro line. You can see that M here, but we're adding a curb bump out. We did discuss some, moving where to have the curb and where to have the layover space. I think that there's still some conversations to be had there with WMATA as far as overall preferences, but we need both. The 92 does do a turnaround here and comes back, turns on 14th, comes back down 13th to lay over. So drivers need to use the facilities and get back on schedule. And so there is some layover time here. There's also a ADA parking spot, as well as a fire hydrant within this area. So we need to be cognizant of those things. And again, we are going to continue to work through those different dynamics as we go through the next phases of design. All right, we're going to go to Vermont Avenue, keep this moving. And again, things that you've already seen before, but we're also having that second access to the metro stop at 10th. And where we have an existing bus stop, we're also proposing to remove the bus stops at 11th. And again, making sure that we're balancing those out and then moving near side stops to far side, what you see on Vermont, and getting that stop that we see on the east side of Vermont going westbound, and moving that to the crosswalk at the metro station along with a curb bulb out. And then all through that, just because of the narrowness of the space, we would have a shared right turn through both, accessing Vermont and to 10th. And so we'll continue to work out those dynamics with our engineering team. From that westbound, we do not have a left turn. However, for the eastbound, we're maintaining that and keeping that left turn to go north on Vermont. All right, next, and this is the end of our limits here. This is our last block, the 900 block, that gets us to 9th Street, and then the transition to Florida. This one block was the most unique block of the entire corridor, just because it was a little bit narrower by a couple of feet. And so we have a lot of buffered out lines here, including that center line. Typically, what we have is parking on both sides throughout much of this until you get to the eastern corner there where you have existing curb line. So we definitely had to manage that quite a bit. And so I did want to just kind of say, like, we are still looking at that and we're trying to evaluate one, the taper length to make kind of a movement for those buses. And so we need a longer length to kind of go move at an angle to make sure that as we make a lane shift. So that's what we're looking at here, but I think there is enough space to accommodate parking on one side, most likely the south side, just looking at the different dynamics of the curb space and the curb lines that exist. So there's still some work to be done. And again, I didn't highlight all of the other kind of streeteries and the different things that are on the right of way at this point, because within the next couple of years, we'll be updating those regulations. And some of those will be moved, some of them will stay, some of the maybe need to be rebuilt. And so again, we're just going to continue to work with business owners there, but wanted to highlight that. I also just wanted to highlight as far as the parking throughout the entire corridor. And thank you. We're almost to the finish line. We're almost for your questions, so hang in there. The parking, as we kind of move some of the bus stops out, we're able to add in parking. Where we had to add in curb bulb outs, and we took up that parking space, oftentimes towards the ends of the intersections. So there was already no parking at those corners, but we just kind of moved those back just a little bit. And for the most part, when we did all of the numbers, there really was not an impact or a change to the total parking spots. We were actually just kind of trading off where those spots were from one side of the street to the other, or from one end of the block to the other. So as far as parking, really not any impacts. And then as we're continuing to move, going eastbound in that transition to Florida, we have another unique block. We just kind of made the assumption we will continue to have bus lanes going through this corridor. We're not quite sure what it will look like. Um, However, we're going to sync this up with the Florida Avenue Bus Priority Project to make sure, is this stop placement correct? Does there need to be a bus bulb out here? What does the bus stop balancing look like through the rest of Florida Avenue? And what kind of bus infrastructure can we provide as that goes further east or southbound? So that's a lot to digest. I'm seeing some comments come through. I haven't been able to check them up, so I am going to keep this moving and we'll close this out. So here we are. This is our concept. We're bringing it to you and we're going to get your feedback. And then as we go through the winter, we'll start developing our 30% design and we'll send out a notice of intent to our community members to let them know that like this is what we finalized and we're going to move forward with. From there, next year we're going to be working to finalize that design, and then we're scheduled to build in 2025. So that's all very exciting, and I'm looking forward to the conversation. One, I'm going to ask Melanie to put our information out into the chat. One, we have our U Street Bus Priority Feedback Form, which is on our webpage. I'm going to ask her to put that web page as well, so you can keep up to date with all of our project updates and where we're at. You can access all of the meetings. This is being recorded and it will be posted here on our webpage, as well as all of our contact information, all of the slides that you have seen today. So you can just drink it all in, maybe over a beverage as well after this meeting or anytime, and then take a closer look at it. We're going to continue to take your comments on this, and we'll post something if we close up that comment period. And then last, you have our phone number. But yeah, please feel free to reach out to us. You'll have our emails at the end. And then we also would love for you to please take this survey. Again, we want to know who is here. We want to know who we're serving. And this is really important for us to improve what we do. And so please take the time. It's just a couple of minutes. I did just wanted to note, you get, it kind of pops out a little strange. You have to kind of click through these first two questions and then hit next, and then it will open up a lot more different questions. So there are multiple pages of the survey or the questionnaire. So please, click on those first two and then kind of work through it. And Melanie, if you could drop that Title VI survey into the chat as well. And please fill it out. And last, thank you. And then I'm going to come back to see if I can pull up this chat. You have our information here. It's just our first and last names with a dot in between at dc.gov. Okay.
Matt, great presentation. I was monitoring the chat comments. We had a lot of input about closing the slip lane on the southbound slip lane on 16th. Everyone seems pretty happy about that. And we did get one question in the chat. Someone asked, when we close the slip lane at 16th, can we use it for the bus stop?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I see that's from Cheryl. All right, I'm in there. Thank you, Melanie. That's awesome. And I appreciate you getting all that information out there and that recap. So to Cheryl's question, can we build the slip lane at 16th or the bus stop into that slip lane? So we would need to reconstruct that to do that. It's not completely off the table. However, what we're proposing is to move that stop to the far side of that intersection, so we wouldn't need to utilize that area. So we want to move that area from the west side, near side, to the far side and across the intersection. So a lot of benefits to that as far as buses aren't having to wait through multiple light cycles. They're not going to have cars turning in front of them to access that roadway at New Hampshire. And it makes it easier for them to get back out into traffic if needed, which hopefully they won't because they'll have their own bus lane. Were there any other, I'm going to keep going through here. I see kind of more slip lane comments. Yes, westbound to the far side for more room. So I think the people I'm seeing support for a lot of slip lane closure. And then some additional automated traffic enforcement, which is on its way. And then I have another comment. I'm not going to go through them. I'm just going to try to recap, but I see some removal of parking for the 900 block since it's all for bars and restaurants. So again, we're going to continue to work with the bus priority team as well as our curbside management team, the Mayor's Office of Nightlife and Culture, and those restaurant bars and owners. Again, there's a lot of demand for that space, and we need to figure out the best way to utilize it and also to keep people safe. And so that's definitely a work in progress, and we're going to continue to coordinate with all of those folks.
Hey, Matt, Santiago has his hand up.
Okay, great. Let me just roll through this real quick here and make sure that I'm not missing anything in the chat. I have one question about transit signal priority. Laura, thank you for that. So we definitely are looking at evaluating that. That might be out of the scope of our project. It doesn't mean it can't happen at a further time. We will definitely look at that with our engineering team, and that will be something that we evaluate in the next phase of design. It's definitely in our toolbox. We also have queue jumps that already exist, so we have some kind of signal support to kind of get our buses out of those congestion and kind of ahead of those queues. But when we have our, if we have our bus lanes, and we won't necessarily need that. But we are, let me just say this, we're looking at those signals. But I think the main point of this conversation is to get these concepts on paper, get some feedback from you guys, and then we'll evaluate those other tools that can help complement these concepts in the next phase of design. And then I see some other things about materials. What we're proposing here is curb, but we also have some other Ziklas. And then depending on the treatment, we can use different materials like striping and flex posts. And then I think the other piece was, will the project timeline remain the same? And yes, that is our goal. Okay. We have some hands up. So I think we have Santiago first, and Melanie, if you see an order or have an order, I'll rely on you to call out the next person. And Danica to get Santiago off of mute. So thank you guys, it's a team effort.
Okay, I am unmuting you now, Santiago.
You.
Are you able to hear me? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. Matthew, I'll probably send you some comments over email, but after this, of course, I just want to say I'm really supportive of this project. I'm really happy with the concepts and all the hard work. So thank you so much for everything. I did have one question about the Vermont Avenue, the stop at where Vermont and U is, the south side. I think you may have said something about why there isn't a bulb out, but I was wondering kind of what's going on there, because at least right now, that's a really tough when I take the bus there, because that's the closest, usually the closest stop for me, or when I'm getting off the metro. The pull in is kind of always funky. So I don't know if you could elaborate a bit on that.
Yeah, and is that at the, I'm sorry, am I at the right location here? Is that at the metro stop or is it across? Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Let me go back. There we go. So is it at Vermont on the southwest corner? Okay, so he can't respond, but yes, thank you. So yeah, we want to make sure that we maintain the access to the metro. So we figure that there will be a lot of transfers um, at that location, and so the trade-off there is um, instead of having that bus move in, I think um, you get the access to the metro. So maintaining that was important to us. And then the other piece is we don't have a huge number of right turns there. So the bus isn't really getting, stuck kind of behind the kind of turning movements of those cars. What you're seeing more there is people parking in the bus lane itself. If we had a curb bump out there, would that stop that behavior? Maybe, but they would still be pulling to the curb, and that's where. So, we're going to take a closer look at it, but that was kind of some of the thinking behind it. And I look forward to that email. And if there are some other comments, Santiago, please go ahead and raise your hand again. I'm gonna go with the hands and hear some other voices. Do we have another hand up here, and can we get some other questions?
Next, we have Paul with his hand up.
Okay, Paul,
Good
we'll get
evening.
you off mute. Hey, Paul.
Hi, I'm Paul Cadario. I'm a member of the Mobility Committee in 2B. And thank you very much for your work and for the great progress since the Mobility Committee had a look at it when you came to visit us in the spring. I also am enthusiastic about the project. I'm having some, and I think moving the bus stops and the way you've put the bus lanes offset is, I think, a reasonable and sensible proposal for U Street. I guess I have three comments. The first one is the intersection at 18th Street is already problematic for buses and pedestrians and and vehicles. So I don't know whether you've given thought to how you're going to clean that up in order to make the bus turns both up 18th and then the very sharp turn from 18th Street onto U. I hope you're going to be looking at that and coming back to us with in your next plan with something about that intersection and how to improve safety and user efficiency at that intersection. Second comment is I know there's a parallel project, which I think DDOT is also in charge of, that has to do with bike lanes. I think DDOT handles bike lanes, and I'm anticipating that there are going to be many questions at RANC about, well, where are the bike lanes? And so I'd be interested to know whether you've given that thought. And while I know you're working primarily with buses here, the bikes got to go somewhere. And certainly, where there are buses and bikes coexisting, say down on L Street, neither the cyclists nor the pedestrians are particularly happy, and I imagine it's going to be a problem for the transit vehicles as well. I was pleased to see in one of the slides, third point, that you're going to have traffic enforcement for cars that are in the bus lanes. I don't know whether that's going to be 24/7 or whether that's only in particular times, but between cameras in the buses and cameras at intersections, I would have thought that the only way you're going to improve the bus speeds beyond the infrastructure investments here is to do something about the feral behavior of people who drive cars. Well,
Paul, there's only so much we can do.
Well, I know, and I appreciate that, and I live in North DuPont, which is one of the most feral parts of the whole city. I should comment parenthetically that I started this meeting sitting on the 92 bus coming from Union Market, and certainly, I think between the congestion and the construction and the traffic signalization near the metro station there, that's a mess. And the bus driver finally said, "Why don't you get out and walk and see if you can catch one of the buses that's ahead of us?" In fact, I walked and caught one of the buses that was ahead of the one I was on. So again, traffic in this city is very feral. bad, and there's no enforcement. And I like the design. I think it's a great improvement. It'll be wonderful for the neighborhood. And yeah, but I'm worried that, you know, DC driving is so appalling that, you know, we'll have a meeting 5 years from now, and while we all hope there's been an improvement in bus speeds, we may not see that because the traffic has just gotten worse in the behavior side. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Paul, and just to note that, I mean, that's what we're looking to address within and with our that is the goals of the project. So it's not just the bus operations, but safety overall. And if we're making it safe for buses, we're making it safe for people walking, for people biking, and for people driving. And so we have these different types of tools and treatments that we know work for these different types of situations to be able to deliver on those goals. And we're hoping to make it safer for everyone. And we're doing that. We're trying to address that through these design treatments. I appreciate your comments on the bike infrastructure. These bus only lanes will also be shared with bikes, but this is not one of our kind of highlighted bike priority corridors. But we are looking at a lot of different parallel routes to be able to connect to the bike network outside of this, including T and V. And so that's kind of where we're thinking people will be more comfortable to ride. Of course, they can ride on U Street, but we heard from folks it's not the most comfortable place to be. And having done it myself, I would agree with that. And then 18th, I would just say I think you're absolutely right as far as that needing to be addressed. I don't know if it's something that we can do within this project. And it may require a complete type of reconstruction that certainly wouldn't be within this timeline or the resources that we have for this project. But it's not something that's being ignored. It's something that I know that our Vision Zero team has looked at and has several ideas and different concepts, but they don't have a project or funding for that yet. Okay, Melanie, if you see some other folks with their hands up, or I can go into some of the comments here at the end of the chat.
Sure. Yeah, it looks like that's all the hands up we have for now. There were two comments after Santiago was typing, so I think those two at the end are probably good to address now.
Okay, thank you. So I hear Cheryl, as far as the bus stop locations and kind of the waiting space. So thank you for that. And so we know we have a rider. We'll also be looking at, we don't want anyone to lose anything as far as bus shelters or infrastructure. And so hopefully when we get to that point, we'll be able to move that and provide bus shelters where we can and where it's necessary. I also see curbside management is very important. And as far as having to manage that, again, I think that dedicated loading zone, thank you, Ethan, is a really good idea. And we're definitely looking at with our team. And we just, you know, there's a lot of work to be done on that. I mean, I don't think we have a specific answer. We know where there's some hot spots or problem areas. I mean, where we know some businesses don't want people to park and do want people to park and do want their deliveries. So again, that is ongoing. And thank you, Paul. Okay, I see another question just came in from Sheen. Are there plans for protection for this lane beyond just flex post? I understand the need to maintain curb access, but some protection in some critical areas, protection could be warranted. That's a great idea, Sheen. I would say through the majority of this, we are not. I think where you said identifying some of those problem areas where you're seeing either some speeding or some violations, we have that in other areas of the city. We may we'll explore that as we go through and design, but it would definitely be I think limited to specific spots and areas of need. All right, I'm not seeing any other. I see one other question come in, but I am going to say we can close this. Oh, we do have a hand coming up. All right, so I would say let's keep this conversation for those. We're going to get to Garrett here in just a second, and then we'll come to Ethan's question in just a moment. So if we could get Garrett off mute, and then I would say, get your hands up now or forever hold your peace, and then we'll wrap this up here within the next 10 minutes, since I haven't seen any other hands. But if we can continue to go a little bit longer than that, if you have other questions, I just need to get those hands up, and then we can answer them. If not, you guys go and enjoy your dinner and enjoy your evening. But let's hear from Garrett, and then we'll get to Ethan's comment.
Hey, good evening. Just wanted to very quickly say thank you so much for the work on this. I'm really excited about what you have presented tonight as someone who rides the 90s like multiple times a week. And yeah, that experience of just crawling through the lanes and watching all of the decisions that other people are making with a vehicle of their own that are holding dozens of people on each bus and multiple buses from getting where they're going. It's like the 90 is a wonderful cross section of DC, DC's people, and it's just so frustrating to be held back. To that end, I really appreciate seeing the like one driving lane in each direction and a bus lane. The more lanes that you give to drivers, the more that they will double and triple park in. So I think that is, it's going to constrain things, but it's going to be good. And I really hope that we can have on bus like camera enforcement once that program gets off the ground. This seems to be a great candidate for it.
Definitely.
And just wanted to also throw in like a plug for dedicated loading zones, probably multiple on each block, on each side of the street. If we are talking about limited curbside space for storing or like giving vehicles access to the curb, this is a primary business corridor. People aren't driving to get to this corridor, but the deliveries and those access are really key for so many. So I just wanted to say, like, if we could fit, a couple on each block, on each side of the street, that'd probably be a good thing. And finally, just as many of those bus extension boarding islands as possible. I think we've seen how those can really change, the bus's ability to get to the curb. It really, really works. And I don't know, love seeing them and would want to see more of them. Thanks so much.
Garrett, can I ask you a question since
Sure.
you brought that up, and we have an image of that on the screen right now at
Right.
8th Street Northeast as a ride. So you have experiences. These are some brand new bus bulb outs, these curb extensions. You mentioned it in a positive light. Has that been your experience since those have gone in, that you've seen a difference?
It has been my experience, and like the frustration that I think we've all seen is, the bus bay could be 100 feet long, and all it takes is somebody parking close to the bus stop. And now the bus, first off, it already had to pull over, but now it can't pull over all the way. People on the back of the bus, if they have, they can walk, but they have other mobility issues, like they're having trouble getting off the back of the bus. Similar to the front of the bus. It slows everybody down, it slows the bus down. Traffic is already backed up behind the bus anyway. And now the bus has to like find a gap in traffic to pull back out. So yeah, and maybe just for the people on the call, I think with that exact example of 8th Street, it actually created more parking spaces because it works better for the bus and it requires less space on the street. So yes, universally positive, I would say.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your comments. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good evening. Appreciate it. I am going to go to Ethan's comment now, as far as why is this considered a separate corridor from Florida Avenue? This is the same corridor, right? We have this, we're serving the same buses. They are also running very slow. Will Florida's treatments be on a similar timeline to use? Great question. Yes, that is our goal. We have already had our kickoff for that, and we are developing concepts right now. I'm really, and the good news is you have the same team working on both. So Melanie and I are managing that project with Jamie, with patting us on the back all the way through. So we've got a good, strong team here, and it's the same team working on U Street. So if you need anything for Florida, we're your people. So and my goal in managing that project is to sync these up so that we can start doing analysis that ties both in together. And you said, what will the treatments be similar? Yes and no, right? There's some areas along Florida where we have much more space where we do on U Street. However, for the majority of the corridor on Florida, we only have those 4 lanes, right? We don't have the 4 lanes and then 2 parking lanes. What you're going to see is trying to kind of have a seamless connection at those transition points, both on the eastern and western end of Florida. But then we're going to have to mix and match those different types of treatments. So we're going to have more options to work through as far as coordinating on Florida. I don't have all the answers yet. We still need to bring concepts to you and get your feedback to what makes the most sense. But we're working on that to make sure that you and Florida work together. And last to that point, within our DDOT bus priority plan, we have all of U Street, Florida Ave, and 8th Street Northeast and Southeast considered all one corridor. And it was ranked the highest in need out of all of the corridors when combined for bus priority treatments. So we're already looking at it and thinking about it as one corridor and even beyond Florida Avenue. And so I just wanted you to know that we're going to continue that, and hopefully we can get these on the same timeline, which they are as far as construction scheduled for 2025. Do we have any more hands? I'm going to try to catch up on some of the chat, but I have just a lot
I
of
think we're finished
supportive
with hands
comments.
for now. Yeah,
Okay.
it looks like we should work on the chat questions.
Okay, I think it's just a lot of either highlighting specific issues or in support of what we've already discussed. And so thank you all to Daniel and Ethan and Paul and Eric and everyone who chimed in on the chat. I'm not going to address those comments specifically since I think we've kind of covered most of them, but we're at 7:10 now. So I'm going to say, well, let's give it one more minute to close out, and then I will get the screen up for the survey, and you can have our contact information, and we'll close that out. So one more minute here on the survey, or at least 30 seconds. Please fill this out. Thank you all for being here and sharing your evening with us. And then Melanie's going to get these links back in for everyone. This presentation will be posted to our webpage tomorrow. And then the big change here, thank you, Raka. Always appreciate your support. This will be the big change is one, we'll get the recording up in the next couple of days because that takes a little bit of time. The presentation slides will go up tomorrow, so you'll have all of this information. And then last, it will include expanding the limits from 16th to 18th. And we're going to need to hit the street and go talk to some folks down on that area and in ANC 1C. So we look forward to those conversations. Once again, thank you all. I think we have everything. And so have a lovely evening. Take care, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you all.
All right.